KPCA, LP, Petaluma, California.
Hey, Matt.
Why isn't this thing playing?
I don't know. As they're pushing the buttons. Hi, everybody. It's Friday.
Oh, well, let's see. Well, there's our industrious ferret.
That's it.
He's on strike.
He's on strike. That's Matt McGuire talking over there.
And that's Jim Thomas over there. And the two of us.
Are two mooks
and a mic.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, listeners.
Welcome, and welcome to some new listeners. I think we picked up at least one or two. Matt, that makes our audience a total of 5, I think.
That's probably a 20% increase.
That's incredible.
We're so proud of ourselves.
Wow. If only the stock market
Welcome, new listener. We'll try not to offend you.
Yeah, well, we'll probably end up offending you anyway.
Well, but we're sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry in advance.
Let's just pre-apologize.
There we go. Okay.
That's
but isn't apology a form of weakness, Matt? Are we supposed to be able to do that or not?
Is that what our president thinks?
Oh, man. All right. We will be talking about the president.
We will be talking about
the Twitler.
But first, I want to say I hope everybody had a nice Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Did you guys do anything for us?
Yes, we did. We had wonderful love surrounding our house, and it was great. But we swore off chocolates because they're both trying to lose about 80 pounds. So I got Phyllis some chocolates. And anyway.
You want to know how to lose 20 pounds of ugly, useless fat?
How do you do that?
As my brother always said,
yeah?
Cut off your head.
How about you?
We probably offended somebody right there.
Yeah, we did. We did. No fat shaming, Matt. Can't do that.
That's right. Yeah. So we went to the movies. We went and saw The Favorite.
Did you like that?
Oh, that was a really good movie.
No kidding. Yeah. Wow.
And it takes place in Queen Anne's time in England.
Yeah.
And it's about two women who just have backbones of steel.
Yes.
And are brilliant and Machiavellian. And they're sparring.
Machinations.
Yeah, and they're sparring for, position and power. Really a good movie.
Queen Anne. Yes, and she was like going slowly crazy. And apparently she had 17 miscarriages.
Yes.
It's very difficult for her.
Lost children, yes.
Yeah, and so there was no heir when she finally died.
Yeah, and she had
a major problem.
She had a major stroke. And then died a month later. But
she was
really highly recommend it, although it's not playing in town anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, so you'll have to go out of town.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the things that aren't Netflix, so arty.
Well, so another exciting week. The moron-in-chief, the tangerine turd, Twitler, has he finally signed the bipartisan deal to fund the government through September, the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
But, of course, now he's declaring a quote-unquote emergency on the southern border.
Oh, man.
Now, he's right in one aspect.
What's
he
that?
has created a humanitarian crisis by his racist behavior in empowering the Homeland Security and Customs Enforcement to, take kids away from their families, illegally prevent people from seeking asylum in this country.
Which has already been in existence, right, even before you signed this thing.
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is 2 years on.
Yeah. So,
and it's international shame on America.
It is. I was listening to some pundits analyzing it, and did the Democrats win anything? And basically, it's still status quo. They wished, however, that the Democrats had stood a little bit stronger for ICE, the
number of detention beds.
Thank you. Yeah, the number of detention beds. They should have held out a little bit more, because what are they going to do? The Republicans are going to say, no, we won't do that, and then go to a shutdown?
Well, I've got a number of things here I wanted to say on that.
Okay, good.
But the detention beds is subject to a little bit of interpretation, because basically what the Democrats were saying was, we want to limit the number of detention beds so that ICE will focus on people who are really violent criminals or people who are a real threat.
They should.
In the meantime, they're saying, if you come into the country illegally, we're going to say you're a criminal, we're going to lock you up.
Right.
And so they're, filling thousands and thousands of beds with people who are not a danger to the country, right?
Yeah, right. Well, there's danger to the white patriarchy.
Exactly. Yeah. But the for one thing, the emergency legal experts are saying that it's constitutionally illicit, illegitimate.
This is the shutdown.
Yeah, the emergency that he's claiming that will allow him to redirect funds without Congress approval.
Got you. All right.
But on the bipartisan deal, it's going to. It doesn't pay the federal contract workers the back pay they lost on the 35-day shutdown.
That's another problem, a big problem. Matt, hold on. Trump isn't used to paying his contractors anyway, so he has no trouble with that.
Yeah, he's just used to screwing them.
Yeah.
Right. It does not extend the Violence Against Women's Act,
Not
although
good.
the Democrats are saying that they're going to work on a stronger standalone bill.
Good.
It does limit the number of ICE detention beds, which is the attempt to stop arrests of nonviolent
okay.
immigrants. But, that's easily stepped around by, ICE can say, oh, well, they can determine what the criteria is and get around that.
Too much power.
It does increase the Homeland Security's budget by $1.7 billion
Wow.
to a total of $49.4 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those guys are getting way too much money.
They sure are.
But one of the good things is that Congress members cannot be barred access to any facility where kids are being housed.
Now, that's new. I did not know that,
Yeah,
and that's
that's a good
really
one.
good. Because remember when they first set up these concentration camps in Congress, people were trying to get in, and
They
they
showed
were
up at the
barred
door.
from doing that.
Yeah.
Now, how can you do that?
Yeah.
These are government officials. They work for
Exactly.
us.
Yeah, high representatives, and they were barred by Homeland Security and
the
ICE.
police, the Gestapo.
Exactly. So
Wow. Wow. Well,
and it
that's
does
good.
include language that makes it easier to reunite kids who are separated at the border
Good.
with either family members or close members in the United States.
Good.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
So there's a couple things in there that were good, but
So it's not all bad.
as we've mentioned on this show before, though, that that extra money that's the 1.7 billion or
Yeah.
1.375
Right,
billion
that's it, right.
that's going towards the wall and other security is another it's money being spent on high tech drones,
people detectors.
Exactly.
Right. And night vision goggles.
more thousands of more
Right.
Border Patrol
Yeah.
agents and stuff, and
more soda,
that's
peanuts.
that's an impact on people's civil rights, and that's not good.
So Eugene Robinson had some interesting quotes about what
He's a
Trump
great
is saying.
columnist.
He's a really great one.
Let's hear it.
He talks about Trump's declaration of the emergency to get this wall funding. It says.
Yeah.
He says it's an end run around Congress and, as such, constitutes a violation of his oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, which gives Congress, not the president, the authority to decide how public money is spent.
Exactly. The
It does-
powers of the purse.
Right. It does not give Trump the right to fund projects that Congress will not approve. Authoritarian leaders do that sort of thing. The puffed up wannabe strongman now living in the White House is giving it a try. Let's be clear. There is no emergency. Arrests for illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border peaked in 2000, nearly 2 decades ago, at
Yeah.
more than 1.5 million a year. They declined sharply under Presidents Bush and Barack Obama. And in 2017, we're at their lowest point since 1971. In 2018, apprehensions ticked up slightly, but still barely climbed above 400,000.
Yeah, there you go.
Unbelievable. So it says, since there's obviously no legitimate emergency, Trump's declaration and the shifting of resources from the duly authorized projects to the wall will surely be challenged in court. It is possible, if not likely, that any actual construction will be held up indefinitely.
Yes, and the House has the prerogative to say that they think it is not an emergency,
Right,
and
good.
Pelosi is ready to go on that.
Yeah, and if such action wasn't necessary in December, some judge will surely ask, then why not now?
Yeah, why now?
Why now? Right.
Exactly.
And also,
Yeah.
he declares an emergency, then he takes off to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, there you go.
How about that?
Yeah, so no big emergency for Donnie Boy.
No, but listen to this, Matt. This is interesting. Pelosi is likely to invoke a clause in the 1976 National Emergencies Act that permits Congress to seek
Right.
to terminate a president's declaration that McConnell appears to have no power to stop from coming to the floor in the Senate.
Right. Now, of course, it will not pass in the Senate, and
Right.
even if it does, well, there's a chance it might pass, actually. There is speculation that there's enough Republicans that say, this is a power grab, and we don't want the Democrats to have that when they finally get the White House back.
Right.
And so there may be enough people in the Senate to say, okay, we're going to stop this emergency declaration. But then Trump will veto it, and they will not have the votes to overcome the veto. But
Yes.
as we mentioned last week,
Yeah.
this is a good move on the Democrats' part, because once, even if whoever in the Senate doesn't support stopping this charade, is going to have that to confront when they run for re-election.
Thank you. So the Democrats are playing the game of, we're putting you on record, Republicans, to vote against this or to vote for this, whatever the vote is, for whatever the issue is, so that you can go on record. It will be on your permanent record.
Exactly.
So, and what would keep the next Democratic president from declaring an emergency in the wake of some mass shooting? and imposing a ban on assault weapons. Is that what McConnell wants as his legacy? Trump cares only that his base is mollified and that nobody remembers how Mexico was supposed to foot the bill.
Right. And
Thank
in
you,
fact,
Eugene Robinson.
In fact, Nancy Pelosi, or the speaker, said, she said something to the effect that I wish Trump would declare an emergency, a real emergency, like on today, the 1-year anniversary of the Margie Stoneman Douglas slaughter in the high school in Parkland, Florida. She's saying now, why doesn't he declare that there is a gun emergency, and that would be a legitimate emergency?
Absolutely.
You can point to the statistics, you can point to the slaughter, and it's clear, but he's never going to do that.
He's never going to do that. Or climate change, Matt.
Exactly. And, now our governor, Gavin Newsom, God bless him, he's withdrawing the state National Guard from the border, and there's not a lot of them. There's about 360 of them.
It's symbolic, though.
But it's very symbolic, and he actually says that Trump's quote-unquote crisis is, political theater. He's saying this is manufactured, and it's absurd, and he says California's had enough, and we will not perpetuate it.
I like this guy.
Yeah, and so he's reassigning those guys to, wildfire, prevention, preparation.
Which actually is more of an emergency for this state.
Exactly, and then drug interdiction. So,
which is true, too.
So most people see this as, just the fig leaf for him to, as Eugene Robinson says, to try to mollify his base and keep them, in his corner. And
so he can, right. And so he's already started his first 2020 campaign.
Right.
And
2 years ago.
Well, yeah, but his first real rally and his new slogan is "Finish the Wall."
Yeah.
His banners put up now.
It's all just propaganda. It's like, it's like George Orwell's 1984, newspeak. And so they can just say whatever they want, and his little mindless followers go, "Oh, that's the truth. That's the reality."
I was reading some quotes by what's his name, Goebbels. Is that the way you pronounce it?
Goebbels.
The propaganda minister for the Nazi regime, and he basically was saying one of the many things he said is pretty insightful. I thought was you just keep saying a few points over and over again, even if it's a lie, and people will start believing.
Well, or he also was like, tell them the big lie. The big lie. Just keep repeating the big lie.
That's what he's known for.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. And that's Trump is like the embodiment of
the big lie,
Nazi propaganda philosophy.
He's got it down. But the thing is, with the big lie, everything for him is a big lie. In this case, now it's the wall that's the big lie, or the migrants coming through that we need the wall.
The crisis, that's a big lie.
Right.
That the wall is being built, that's a big lie.
Absolutely.
That we have the money to build it, that's a big lie.
That's a big lie too. So I watched Chris Hayes on MSNBC 2 nights ago, and he had a wonderful, he was down in El Paso, Texas, and he had reporters all along the 2,000-mile border between Mexico and the U.S. And he actually, at one point, the place is beautiful, by the way, all along that border. He had Beto O'Rourke come on. And Beto O'Rourke, he asked him, and because Beto is from El Paso, and Beto says, we have the reputation of being the safest town in the country, which is great. And if he had his druthers, he actually would tear the wall down. It's more dangerous to have the wall up than it is down.
Well, just like we reported last weekend, like Nogales, Arizona, and stuff. People go back and forth, and it's it's
no big
integrated.
Deal, right?
It's integrated community. Yeah,
and it helps everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so let's see what else going on. William Barr was approved by the Senate as Attorney General. Yeah. Remember, this is the guy, the old right winger that's been in like the Reagan and Bush administrations, and he's been around, the Department of Justice, but he would not commit to releasing all the information from the Mueller report when that finally is completed.
He danced around the question.
Totally danced. Now, and then apparently the number 2, Rod Rosenstein, who, a professional bureaucrat's done a good job there.
By staying away from
by protecting Mueller's, and
hands
not,
off.
Keeping it from the political influences, et cetera.
Thanks, Rod.
So he's going to be leaving soon. So this means that Barr is going to have the chance to appoint the number 2 guy there. Now, what's interesting is that Senator Chuck Grassley, who's a Republican, and Richard Blumenthal, who's a Democrat, have proposed legislation that would force the release of the information
to the public
upon release of that report.
I'm delighted that Grassley's doing that. I'm also surprised that he's
me
doing
too,
that.
Because he's been a real jerk.
He's been an ick.
An ick.
The D word.
That's
ick.
right. The D word ick.
Yeah, he's been the D word ick.
Yeah, and plus, keep in mind, this is, again, where it's so crucial that we had the blue wave take over the House.
Thank you, Jesus.
Democrats in the House could pry loose, some good portion of the information in that report by actually having Mueller come testify in front of Congress.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting thought, man.
So,
cool.
Yeah, so that's where, we'll be keeping track of that, folks.
We will.
Keep you posted.
Speaking of the blue wave, that's very good news. Here's a little quote, or a little blurb here.
Yeah.
Matt. The moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. A new report by the Pew Research Center says the young people of Generation Z, those are you all who are born between 1995 and 2010, are part of one of the most ethnically diverse and progressive age groups in American history. And you guys are moving to the left on social issues. The study is based on online surveys. Only 30% of Gen Z responders said they approve of President Trump's performance. More than 50% believe humans were fueling climate change. And 70% said they want the government to do more to solve the nation's problems. Those views are similar to attitudes held by millennials together, and us, Matt, even though we're not millennials or Generation Z
we're
or
young
X.
at heart, Jim.
We are. Together, the two age groups add up to a powerful voting bloc, perhaps at odds with the Republican orthodoxy.
Yeah, I am still concerned about that 30%.
Yeah, what is that with the 30%?
Yeah.
Come on, you guys, wake up.
Well, there's a vast hinterland out there where the only information that's publicly available is Fox propaganda.
I don't think we can say Fox News on the air.
Faux news. So, good news. Elizabeth Warren formally threw her hat in the ring for president, and she's calling for fundamental change. And I just love this quote. She says, "By the time we get to 2020, Donald Trump may not be president. In fact, he may not even be a free person." Go, Elizabeth.
Go, Betsy. Woo. Yeah, that's really nice.
Now, she's got to overcome that male chauvinist bias against women who are, quote unquote, unlikable. Now, I think she's tremendously likable. I love her. She's set up the Consumer Financial Protection Board and has done great work as a senator.
She makes the bankers nervous.
And she calls BS on BS.
She does call BS on BS. Yeah. And an acquaintance of mine says that, a male acquaintance of mine says that he doesn't like her because she's too shrill.
Well, there you go.
I was shocked, Matt.
Yeah, and it's like, you know what? Okay, so a shrill woman compared to Donald Trump, who's just a slavering, knuckle-dragging, sexual predator, and I mean,
don't hold back.
A swamp critter of the
and a swine.
Par excellent, a swine. I mean, it's like shrill. I'll take that every time.
Who cares what she sounds like, Matt? It's what she's saying that's the most important.
Exactly. It's like, do you want some, fascist, destructive force, or do you want somebody who's like maybe a wonk and a bureaucrat?
Voters, come to the light.
Exactly.
Come to the light.
So, and of course, Trump has been attacking Warren more than others.
Of course. Well, he's just getting started, right? He's been attacking her for quite some time.
He has, yeah. But I think he has particularly strong hostility towards her because he has seen her be effective in the realm of finances.
As you said, she calls BS on the BS, so she cuts right through it.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole Pocahontas thing. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, so she's... And she's been like wrongly abused for having done a DNA test. She does have some Native American blood. Yeah. Okay, so you have some Native American blood. You don't necessarily get to call yourself an Indian or whatever.
Just because
that's your ethnic, being.
Right.
But she did that because he kept calling her Pocahontas.
Yeah.
And so she's going, look, I've got some Native American blood. What of it?
And she apologized for it, man. She says
for any offense that she may have. But there was one Native American guy that got up on his high horse that then got the national news coverage and repeated over and over again.
Yeah, but she said, I can't go back, but I am sorry for furthering confusion on tribal sovereignty and tribal citizenship and the harm that has resulted. Good for her.
Yeah. So,
what more do you want?
And her followers are going, who cares?
Right.
Right. We're listening to what she's talking about. Healthcare, jobs,
shrill or Native American, who cares?
Exactly.
Go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
So, and then, former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe has a book out, and he's got a 60-minute interview that's going to air this Sunday.
This Sunday, right? That's correct. CBS.
And he's back in 2017, in May 2017, right after Trump fired James Comey, the head of the FBI, he and other top Department of Justice officials sat down and said, hey, this guy's out of control. What are we going to do about him? We need to consider Amendment 25 that says, when the president is wacky, you can call together the vice president and the members of the cabinet, and if a majority of them vote, he can be taken out of office.
That's the crazy rule.
The crazy rule.
But oh wow.
But but I think what they did when they counted noses, they could not get to a majority that would support dumping Trump.
Wow.
Because look who he put in there. He had Jeff Sessions.
Yes.
He had Scott Pruitt.
Yes. All his
He had Ryan Zinke. All of these guys who are gone now. All of them with the stain of corruption on them.
Being involved with Trump.
Exactly. And so I think that they counted noses and said, we're not in a position to make this work right now. You wonder if they had been able to get to that.
They would have done it.
Think of how much better the country would have been off.
I know.
I mean, it would be President Pence,
which is awful,
but still, I think not as out of control.
So, as a follow-up and a related thing, 6 of President Trump's current cabinet-level jobs are filled by "quote-unquote" acting officers.
6,
yes, who have not been confirmed by the Senate: the Attorney General, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Interior, Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, United Nations Ambassador, and the White House Chief of Staff. Trump says he prefers acting cabinet officials because he can move so quickly if he's not happy with them. In other words, just get rid of them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so McCabe said in this, and this will be aired on Sunday, he said that I was very concerned that I was able to put the Russia case on absolutely solid ground in an indelible fashion.
Wow.
That were I removed quickly or reassigned or fired, that the case could not be closed or vanish in the night without a trace.
Like that.
That shows the top FBI officials were saying Donald Trump is not to be trusted.
Yep.
And so that 8 days later was when the Mueller investigation began.
And Matt, we've talked about this on our show too, is that Mueller seems to be doing a very similar tactic, and if he is removed, the investigations will still continue. He's spreading the wealth basically of the investigations. So they're all over. Many people are involved in charge of it.
He's creating more assurances that it will not be hijacked.
And there's not a single person in charge. Well, though he is, but if he's removed, it'll still have life.
Yeah. As a clip from the interview with Scott Pelley of 60 Minutes said that Pelley was on CBS this morning. He said that McCabe had confirmed a New York Times report that the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, had suggested wearing a wire in meetings with Trump, and that Justice Department officials had discussed recruiting cabinet members to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office.
Yeah, wow.
He says there were meetings at the Justice Department in which it was discussed whether the vice president and a majority of the cabinet could be brought together to remove the president of the United States under the 25th Amendment.
Yeah.
These were the 8 days from Comey's firing to the point that Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel, and the highest levels of American law enforcement were trying to figure out what to do with the president.
Right, yeah.
They still are, unfortunately.
We all are. But it's, like you said earlier, it's perhaps a two-edged sword, because if you do get rid of Trump, you have Pence.
Yeah.
And even though Pence might be a little bit more sane, not by much. I mean, he's not so impulsive.
Well, yeah, and I don't think he would be so corrosive on the institutions of democracy.
That may be. That absolutely may be. But there are theories.
I think it's a big difference.
There's theories out there that Pence actually believes in the divine right of kings, and he believes that Pence is ordained by God to be the president, and he is ordained to fulfill the next being the president after him. He's been chosen by God.
Oh, God. Yeah, but all you have to do is push him into a room with a woman. And,
whoa, not his wife.
Yeah. It's like,
unclean. Yeah, then he becomes shrill. That's right.
That's like the lip-syncing video I sent you
that's pretty funny.
Of Pelosi and Pence standing behind Trump at the State of the Union. Yeah, don't leave.
Don't leave on me, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. It's funny if it weren't so tragic.
If it weren't so sad. Isn't that true, Jim? So,
wow.
let's see. So, Other stuff going on.
Yeah, here's one. A career criminal robbed a bank in Wisconsin because he'd been told the state's jails offer superior health care. He was serving time in a New Jersey jail. He was 68 years old. He heard fellow inmates raving about Wisconsin's prison health care. Upon his release, he says his lawyer, he's a Vietnam War vet, robbed a Milwaukee bank with the sole intention of going to jail. Prosecutor James Griffin called the case a sad comment on healthcare in America.
Boy, true that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Huh?
So a judge recently just ruled that Paul Manafort, former Trump campaign manager, lied to prosecutors, the FBI, and lied to a federal grand jury in the Russia investigation. Now, Manafort was already convicted twice, right?
That's right.
And this will hurt his possibility of a reduced sentence. Yay, put that guy away for a long, long time. And remember, he's the sleazebag that was working with the Ukrainian president.
That's
and, just as corrupt as can be.
Being paid $50,000 a week.
Yeah, that, he was worked, his company, I think, was the one they called the Dictators Lobby because, the worst dictators in the world could hire him for, PR purposes, et cetera.
Or the Ictator.
Yeah, the Ictator. Manafort and his attorneys just claimed, they were innocent mistakes. And, he forgot until his memory was refreshed.
Yeah, they kind of forget a lot, like Jared Kushner and his clearances.
Exactly. Manafort partnered with the Russian oligarch who's got close ties to the Russian intelligence agency.
There we go.
Now, most of this case is being heard in secret, but apparently the judge said that he did lie on 3 out of the 5 matters that the prosecutors listed.
Yeah.
And, he most likely was discussing Ukraine and easing the sanctions on Russia when he was still a high campaign official, which, of course, they all claim, no, we weren't talking to the Russians.
Oh, no. Right. We're talking about adoption of children.
Yeah.
But, Matt, apparently, from what I heard, the analysis of why he did that, which is pretty stupid if you think about it, was because he's anticipating a pardon from Trump.
Well, that's probably true, and Trump has, indicated that he would give pardons. He's always said, Manafort's a good man, and blah, 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 right?
Yeah, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
exactly right.
So now, Jim, the Democrats in the House passed a resolution ending U.S. military support for the Yemen war and supporting Saudi Arabia.
How about that? That's a slap in the face to old Trumpy.
That sure is. And Trump, and, they're saying that this, the Senate majority actually supported this measure last year, but the Republican House wouldn't hear it.
Wow, how things change so quickly.
So this is the, under the War Powers legislation, and apparently under the War Powers legislation, I don't think the Congress has ever done this before.
I think you're right, and I don't think they've done anything recently. They let the president declare war, or not even declare war, but just send troops in without Congress approval, which they're supposed to have.
Say ever since like Vietnam.
That's right. Ever since Vietnam, because it was never declared.
Yeah,
never
exactly.
declared a war.
And so now this is going to go back to the Senate for a vote, and it could pass there. It would force Trump to exercise his first veto if it does.
Wouldn't that be just delightful?
No, but this is a true humanitarian crisis. Millions of people are on the edge of starvation.
That's good.
There's been 4 years of slaughter.
Gassing people.
And they're saying that, both the House and the Senate, some of the motivation here is the murder of Jamal Khashoggi by Prince Mohammed bin Salman,
which Trump just brushed off.
Who's the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
Yeah, and Trump says, oh, no, he didn't kill him. He's my buddy.
Yeah, right. They buy so many arms from us.
Yeah,
was his excuse.
And then, and there was actually... Trump was supposed to have responded to Congress, I think, last week.
That's correct.
With a response as to whether or not,
by law,
that did he think that Saudi Arabia was guilty of murdering Khashoggi, and he didn't respond.
He just ignored it.
Yeah. So
good. So finally, the Congress people are getting cojones.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
We'll see if the Republicans. I doubt the Republicans. I mean, there may be enough Republicans to do this. And pass this measure in this Senate, and that would be a good move because we really shouldn't be supporting Saudi Arabia. They are a terrorist state.
That's right. Yes, they are. Remember,
like Israel.
Don't forget that the 9/11 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia.
That's right. Most of them.
Most of them. Not everyone, but most of them.
Yeah. And then
carry on.
Yeah. Speaking of terrorist states,
here we go.
So Ilham Omar, is that how you say
I think so, yes. Congresswoman from Minnesota.
Yeah, that's right,
Freshman.
Democrat. Now, she's been getting a lot of crap thrown at her because she talked about AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee.
Yeah.
Very powerful, very well funded,
Yeah.
and, huge bullies, just brutal. If anybody criticizes anything that Israel does, then you're an anti-Semite. Even
That's
though
right, yeah.
the rest of the world has declared that Israel is an international pariah and has violated international laws over and over again, including through the settlers building on Palestinian land, walling off Gaza, and basically half-starving 2 million people, etc. And so she's saying, hey, it's all about the Benjamins, meaning $100.
The money, right?
Yeah, and she didn't go far enough. It's not just about the money; it's about the political power and how they will smear you as an anti-Semite if you
right.
say anything against Israel.
That's right.
Now she's become a hero to a lot of us on the left because just recently in the House Foreign Affairs Committee, she was grilling Trump's choice for Venezuela's envoy, Elliot Abrams. Now, when you're old enough, as we
you
are,
and I are, yeah.
you remember what happened under Ronald Reagan in Central America. The support of death squads, the overthrow of legitimate democratic governments,
Killing of children, the rape of children.
the slaughter of hundreds of women and children, the whole El Mozote village where like 800 civilians were slaughtered.
It's like melee in Vietnam.
By the Salvadoran army,
Yeah.
in an attempt at pacification.
And he gets away with it.
And Elliot Abrams was saying, oh, this was a fabulous result.
Right,
This was,
that's right.
Our policy there was great. And so Omar was just grilling him. He said, do you think that kind of policy that inflicts slaughter is good? And he's going, well, ever since then, it's been a democratic state. Well,
That's right.
no, it's
Yeah.
actually been a corporate slave state ever since.
And she held his feet to the fire and said, yes or no.
That's right.
And he would say, it's a ridiculous question. She says, I'm not asking you a question.
Yeah, that's
yes
not a
or
question.
No.
Yeah.
Yes or no. And she was relentless in what she
said.
did.
First, she said, I don't know how anybody on this committee or listening to this could accept anything you say as
Yes,
truthful.
that's right.
And that's when she said, that's not a question.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so he was really flustered because no one ever called him on all the BS that he has done in the
Well,
past.
remember, no, actually, he was convicted of lying to Congress.
But he was pardoned
by G.H.W. Bush.
Yes, he was pardoned. So
That's right.
his record has been expunged. But God love her, she's been great,
Exactly. Yeah, and
and
of
she's
course,
now reviled.
yeah, and so that was when the U.S. trained those Salvadoran soldiers, who raped and murdered 800 civilians in El Mozote.
Just disgusting.
He said that was a fabulous achievement.
Unbelievable.
Jeremy Scahill, political reporter, he said he's an unrepentant war criminal.
Good.
And he had a central role in the mass slaughter of tens of thousands of people
Yeah.
in Latin America under Reagan.
Yeah, that's right.
Reagan's State Department. Omar says, would he, quote, support an armed faction within Venezuela? Because remember, now he's Venezuela's envoy.
And this is what Bolton actually had on his notepad, troops to Venezuela, right? 5,000 troops to Venezuela.
And Trump is still saying that's on the table.
That's on
right?
the table, correct.
And so she's saying, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide if you believe they were serving U.S. interests, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua? He would not reply.
Would not. And and he complained that these type of questions are inappropriate. Yeah, would not reply.
And that, the poor witness is being attacked. Well, guess what?
Yeah, right.
You're still alive after all your, some of the worst stuff that America has done.
Right.
In
Why
its foreign
he
policy.
should be in jail.
He absolutely should be.
Yeah.
And that was a crime that he was, Bush pardoned him.
Yeah. So, again, it's the freshman Democrats, the women particularly, who are just really trying to change things and get rid of the old guard.
And, and here's still part of the problem. Pelosi and top Democrats chastise Omar for her comments, accurate comments about AIPAC, the Israeli, American-Israeli Political Action Committee.
Correct. But, Matt, to her credit, she apologized and she said, I am still learning. I don't know all the seriousness of it. And an after thing that a report is that she is huddling with Jewish leaders so she can learn more. And so did Trump ever apologize?
No.
No.
Will
he ever? No.
He's still spewing racist bigotry as recently as today in his, speech declaring, we have to have this emergency funding for his wall.
Wow, I want to take a shower after talking about him. But anyway, she's great. She's making amends, and she realizes she's still learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
She feels like maybe she overstepped the bounds in retrospect. So she's being responsible.
I personally don't think she did, but she's saying I'm listening.
She's listening, and she's learning, which is great.
Now, here's another interesting thing on Venezuela.
Okay.
Maduro actually revealed that there have been some secret talks with the U.S. And he's offering to meet with Abrams. Now, that's like sitting down with the devil.
The devil's sitting down with the devil.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Maduro's a lousy president, and there is corruption in Venezuela,
a lot of it.
But it doesn't justify America in invading or getting in there and manipulating what's going on. And again, like we said last week, we should support the suppressed people, and we should support the democracy.
Right.
But Venezuela, Bolton and Abrams and Trump are not the people who are promoting democracy. They want the oil, and they want their right-wing oligarchs back in control.
But Matt, this has been a pattern with the United States, thinking that they can do whatever they want with South and Central America for centuries.
Yeah, our little
maybe not centuries, but many. Centuries, the 1800s. Yeah,
well,
our playground.
Right, yeah.
That's right.
Two centuries.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So the pattern continues.
It does. Yeah. So, Jim, talking about newly electeds.
Yeah.
We've got OAC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Love that woman.
Yeah, and so she and others, Edward Markey, have
that man.
The Green New Deal that they're promoting,
right?
And it's getting a lot of support from Democratic presidential candidates, and a lot of young demographics, like you were citing before,
right?
But it's
and also businesses. They're supporting it.
Yeah, good.
Because they're saying we could make this work. It would be good for us, and it'd be good for the environment. So it's not just the left-leaning politicians and the young politicians.
Well, there was even an article from The Economist last week that was pointing out that it's got some good things to it.
The Economist.
Yeah, which is very
that's good.
Capitalistic,
there we go.
Conservative.
Right.
But so Mitch McConnell is going to let the Green New Deal go to a vote in the Senate.
Yeah.
And his motivation, the Republicans, is that, they think this is so far out that, anybody that supports it's either a commie dupe or, smoking crack or a socialist, and that's going to make them a political target.
That's right. And one of the things that Trump is starting to say now is the Democrats are too radical and everything's going to turn into socialism under the Democrats. And this is his line.
His line is that the Green New Deal will turn us into Venezuela. But I think McConnell is misjudging this, because when you've got Kamala Harris and Cory Booker,
they're all coming out
Elizabeth
for that.
Warren, they're all in support of that, and so what's not to like about it? To save the climate by creating jobs while making sure that there is social justice,
similar to the WPA under Roosevelt, to get people who want to work can work to fix to fix our infrastructure, for one, and two, have a long range things that our children's children, not in my case, will actually be able to survive.
So because we're in a climate crisis. What does Trump say? He says the Green New Deal will permanently eliminate all planes, cars, cows, oil, gas, and the military.
What?
Yeah. And now every one of those is a lie. Every one of those, the Washington Post did an analysis, went through and it's a lie.
Matt, I could tell you it was a lie without even doing any analysis.
Of course.
What do you mean get rid of cows? Does that mean eat them all? Or is it because of the flatulence?
To curtail methane, it resonates with the American people, a mission to save all creation by investing in massive job operations, says Edward Markey. What's not to like?
What's not to like? Exactly right.
And Jim, on a tangential
Yeah, let's go.
Issue. I did want to say that I did go to the Introduction to Drawdown gathering.
Very good.
At the old Seed Bank building.
So we mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what that was again to refresh our listeners and our new listeners who may not know about it.
So Drawdown is the Drawdown project. The goal is to identify, measure, and model the 100 most impactful substantive solutions to global warming that either reduce emissions or remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and to try to get this done in the next 30 years by 2050.
In little old Petaluma.
Well, in the world.
No. But this was happening in little old Petaluma.
Yeah, that's right.
That's good.
And so, there's annually there is a fluctuation in greenhouse gases, and they increase and decrease. Some are absorbed by the ocean, and there's
and trees.
Plants take them in, and then there's more produced.
Right.
But with the advent of humans and burning fossil fuels, it's creeping up to where we're way past the 350 parts per million.
How many years do we have? The
Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says we need to stop that in 12 years. All right. So it was an interesting meeting and a lot of good information. There were a couple of brief films with Bill McKibben, and Bill McKibben, the founder of 350.org.
Okay, yeah. Good.
And you can go to the Pachamama.org website, I believe, or 350.org and see some of these films. And he's really good talking about the state of climate change and how to address it. So you would think that if we all had drove electric cars,
that's it, yeah,
and had solar systems on our houses,
I like that.
And
that'd be enough, right?
And cut back on our beef consumption.
Yeah, maybe once a month.
That would be well on our way. But no, it is not true.
Oh, man.
He says that if we did all that individually, that I think it was it would reduce the carbon pollution by, it was either 22 or 30%.
Okay, that's
but it was a
pretty good start.
But not nearly enough.
No, it's not.
22 to 30%. We got in 12 years.
Yeah,
no.
Not good.
So guess what the one single top of the 100 things you can do list is?
I got it. And that is to keep cows from flatulating.
No, that's a little further down the list.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay, hit me.
The number one thing we can do is to have better refrigerant management.
What? You mean like refrigerators in our homes and in our cars? But wait a minute, we got rid of the Freon. What are they talking about?
The different fluorocarbons, chemicals are like, 1,500 or 15,000 times more destructive to the Earth's envelope, that it is so much more damaging that is the top thing. Yeah.
Still.
So so let me go through some of the top numbers.
I want to know. Yeah.
So the first one is refrigerant management.
Okay. So wait, hold on. The management means replace the gas with something else?
Yes, and there are alternatives. Let's see, I'm trying to remember it because it didn't get mentioned yesterday, but I've seen that you can actually buy freezers and refrigerators that use non-destructive refrigerants.
Really?
And it's not that much more expensive.
Wow.
Yeah, but they're hard, you have to seek them out. I think they're German made.
Okay.
Maybe Swedish. But so that's one thing. The next thing is to build onshore wind turbines.
Now, okay. Why onshore, not offshore?
Well, again, it didn't go into all the details, but I'm speculating that because there are vast areas of land in the country where there are good wind, constant winds.
The whole state of Montana, for instance.
Yeah, and it's clean, and wind is very efficient in the cost on the return on investment.
So,
right?
Okay. And so, in other words, and also probably what it is able to generate is probably very efficient as opposed to solar panels.
Well, and solar, only works when the sun is shining.
And only works when the sun is shining, or you're out there with a candle.
That's right. Okay, now the third one is reduced food waste. It takes 11 calories to produce 1 calorie of food that we consume.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, so that's 11 times. So that's like food waste, both in, poor farming practices, rotting food, distribution is a huge part of that.
So, Matt, that's the growing, let's say we're meat eaters. I know that it's a very inefficient way of using land. Is that part of the food waste?
That is part of it.
And also the food that we throw out. And that's also
the number 4 item is a plant-rich diet, which means, don't eat so much beef.
All right, so that's for all you vegans out there.
Yeah, exactly. Then the 5th one is to protect our tropical forests because they absorb so much carbon. And of course, now that we have that, fascist running Brazil,
yes,
and he wants to clear cut, so more cattle ranchers can increase their herds.
And they call the rainforests in Brazil the lungs of the earth.
That's right. Now here's the next two, number 6 and 7 are really interesting.
Okay,
number 6 is educating girls.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And number 7 is family planning.
Well, that makes sense.
So when you educate girls,
put a sock on it.
and have family planning, you don't have rampant population, and you have much better family management of resources. So, and those two together actually have a stronger impact than the number one, refrigerant management alone.
Really?
Yeah. So there's the top 7. Number 8 is solar farms. Number 9 is silvopasture. Number 10 is rooftop solar.
Okay.
And then it goes on down.
Where are the cows?
Peatlands, tropical, etc. Well, the cows come in a plant-rich diet, I think.
Okay, good. But wait a minute. Let's get back to the girls. I'm curious about that.
So,
I'm
when you educate girls, they
Yeah.
have a more equal part in the society,
Mm-hmm.
and there is less repression and abuse, and that tends to, along with family planning,
Okay, all right.
mean that you can get a better control on population growth.
Thank you. So it's women's right to choose, but not just for birth control, for instance, but what they do with their own bodies and how they manage their households.
Exactly.
Perhaps.
Now, again, there was a lot of information here, and so this bears a lot more research. But Bill McKibben is great. He's saying, look, the IPCC says we have 12 years.
Yeah, it's not
The
much
National
time.
Climate Assessment tells us that, the crisis is full bore, et cetera.
Yeah, uh-huh.
He's going, those are long odds. But do you want to take them on? So he goes, is it game over or is it game on?
Okay, I'm voting for game on. Thank
What
you.
choice do you have?
You don't.
Really?
Right. You don't.
Right.
We don't. We have to
Yeah.
have game on. Which, again, Matt, here we go back to the young freshmen in the Congress
Yeah.
that seem to be aware of this
And are willing to do it.
yes,
have
they're,
game
they're
on.
rolling up their sleeves and they're fighting it.
Exactly, right.
So they're fighting a lot of the Republicans who are saying, no, we don't care. It's not going to be game over for us because we'll all be dead.
Yeah,
don't
exactly,
care.
exactly.
So we have to think about the future.
Yeah. So
right.
anyway,
sounds good.
there's a drawdown.org and pachamama.org.
Spell the Pachamama, please.
Pachamama
Like the way it sounds.
are both have more information. I recommend our listeners check out those websites.
Thank you.
Check out the book that's talking about drawdown. And look at this. But the takeaway here
Yeah. Okay, good.
is that really, I mean, there's like one guy was saying, hey, there's 4 different forms of activism. There's yourself.
Yeah, right. Which is good.
Where
it starts.
Yes, doing your recycling and maybe a vegetarian diet, whatever.
Yep.
Then there's your family and friends.
Right. Okay.
You influence people right around you,
Yeah.
like let's
force them to
compost
eat more grains.
That's right. And then there's the activism at the local community level.
So that's kind of what you did by going to Petaluma, this thing in Petaluma.
Yes, or
right?
electing good people to the city council.
Sounds great, which
it was
we did.
good to see both Delinda Fisher and Kevin McDonald were there at the meeting.
Yes, good to hear.
2 of our new city council
Nice,
people.
good.
And then there's the policy or the national level. And the one person was saying he thought that the family and friends and local community are most powerful. But Bill McKibben was saying that policy is critical and we have to change policies. And this is
Yeah.
why, local elections, state elections, national elections,
matter.
Nonprofit organizations like 350.org
Right.
are critical because, it's not enough for us to drive our electric vehicles and compost our scraps and recycle and reduce our energy, et cetera, et cetera. We have to have policy changes that affect refrigeration, that affect international education of girls, that allows family planning throughout the world. That's the way we have to address climate catastrophe.
Matt, I think that's all really good. But so our listeners, they can do as much as they can, like with your recycling. If they have an electric car, bully for you. If you have solar panels on your house, good for you. What do they do? Go to 350.org
Yes.
or Pachamama,
Yes.
and they can get more ideas of things they can do.
Yes, and then they can join the Pachamama group here
Right.
and talk about so one of the things that Pachamama is doing is they're going to go to the city council, and this is happening in city councils all across the county and the country, and they're going to say, look, you need to make a declaration that we are in a climate crisis.
Great.
And when you declare that you're in a climate crisis, the more people do that, the more it gets the attention of people in Sacramento.
So
and the more that happens at the state level, the more it gets attention of people in Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much.
And there's grant monies and there's federal monies.
Right.
And as you've heard me say over and over ad nauseum, take 3% of the Pentagon's budget and apply it towards this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
And there's plenty of money to actually turn this ship in time to, preserve the human race, because that's what we're talking about.
We are talking about that, and we have to make it important enough for people who are saying, nope, sorry, I want to go to Burger King and I want to drive my big gas guzzler or my diesel truck, to turn it around and think, what's happening in the future?
Yeah.
We live in a bubble here in Petaluma, and I feel like we're blessed with that. We also live in a bubble here in Sonoma County, and here we go, in California as well.
That's right.
And a lot of people have always said, and listeners have probably heard this too, that where California leads, the nation follows.
That's right.
And that's good. If we can get Gavin Newsom, who seems like he's doing the right things now.
Doing a good job.
And if he continues in this way, then we're well on our way to doing that.
Yes.
And giving him support.
We're fortunate to be in this bubble, because that means that if you go down and talk to your city council people or call them up on the phone or email them.
They won't call you a crank.
That's right. And share your concerns.
Yeah.
That's we're seeing momentum, we're seeing trends that are positive, and little Petaluma plays its part, and along with people in Marin County and San Francisco and Oakland and San Jose and up and down the state, and then pretty soon, California is like the model, and then things.
That's great.
There is the long odds, but good odds, and McKibben was saying, look, he finds that to be in a way a gift. It's really can be totally exhilarating and gratifying to take on the challenge. I mean, many of us, and I'm guilty of this too, get to the point where I just feel paralyzed or depressed and want to forget about it for a while. And you need to take a step
break.
back.
Yeah, go to a movie.
That's all fine. Right. Yeah, but at the same time, we do need to continue doing what we can, both individually with our family and friends, then on the community level, and then push that national.
Good, Matt. That was a really nice little speech.
Thank you.
One of the things I also like is that when we approach our city councils, our elected leaders, they seem receptive to it.
Yes.
So it's not just that we're fighting always constantly. It's just being aware and trying to help continue the ball rolling, and that's really good.
There is momentum, so you're not alone, folks.
That's right.
You're not alone if you step out.
Woo!
Yeah, there's.
So that was good. This is to make up for the doom and gloom episode we had last week.
Well, if that's too cheery, don't let me hear some doom and gloom.
Oh, no. Can't we wait till next week?
Forewarned is forearmed.
There we go.
All right. I just have to. I read this. Was rather. This is like, oh God, here we go. Car loan delinquencies of 90 days or more are now over 7 million people in the country.
That's crazy.
7 million. And that's
they
more.
Can't afford it.
That are behind more than 3 months on their car payments.
Wow.
That's more than the peak during the 2008, 9, 10 meltdown.
Wow.
That's pretty scary.
Financial meltdown.
Yeah, financial. Now, they're saying that, and this is mostly people under 30 and lower socioeconomic, and they're saying it may be because so many of these people have student debt, and they can't handle both at the same time.
Wow.
Right?
So they have to probably buy medicine, they have to buy food, they have to pay rent, they have to pay off their student debt, and they have to pay their car loan.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
And economists go, well, car loans are one of the things that people pay first because, one, you need it to get to your job.
Absolutely. You need transportation.
And two, if you lose your house, you can sleep in your car.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that's pretty sad, right?
It is. So what happens? Are they repossessed? Are they towed away?
They often get repossessed, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's a really horrible statistic.
That is terrible, right?
Wow. Okay,
so
I got something for you.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Finish your thought
first.
first.
Here's positive, but you go first.
Okay, this is about Lorena Bobbitt.
Oh,
you might have remembered
dear
Lorena
Lorena.
Bobbitt. Yes. Okay, so she's discussing the incident that made her and her husband 1990s tabloid sensations. She was in
severing of her husband's male member.
His junk, as we're told to say, from the New York Times. She alleged that her husband actually raped her. She used a kitchen knife to cut off his and in his sleep,
pecker.
and then threw it out her car window 15 minutes later. She said, why did she chuck it? She said, I tried to drive the car, obviously, but I had this thing in my hand, so I got rid of it. Okay, but the thing is, she's coming back because she says people are not getting it. That, yes, the incident was horrible, but they're forgetting the fact of why I did it and the fact that her husband raped her.
That's right.
That should
more than once, right?
Yes, I think so. So that's what really we should be focusing on is what she says.
Right.
Good for her.
Yeah. So,
right?
and in fact, I recall that was her motivation, and that's what she said at the time. But the sensationalist news media just focused on the guy, getting whacked and then
getting chopped, sliced, and whacked,
and then it's sewed back on, and then he becomes a porn star.
That's right.
I mean, it's like a ridiculous story, but she's
Wow.
right. She should be going. What was the quote? She said something about her.
Yes.
suffering.
Hold on. Well, first of all, she was acquitted for her act because of temporary insanity. But she says they always focused on it. It's like they all missed or didn't care why I did what I did. Why would they laugh about my suffering? She's proud to continue residing in Manassas, Virginia. I live here. This is my home. Why should I have the last? Why should he have the last laugh?
Yeah.
So good for her.
Yeah.
You know, I admire that. Even though what she did was pretty horrific, but what he did was even worse.
Yeah, and at the time I thought, good for you. You stood up for yourself.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, she became a joke, right? It was a national thing, and it's a tragedy that we looked at it that way. And I'm glad that she's speaking out and saying,
good for her.
Yeah, refocus, everybody.
That's right.
Okay, what do you got?
All right, so the Senate, after 200 attempts, has finally passed a bill making lynching a federal crime.
Yay!
How about that?
200 attempts.
Yeah. I mean, that's just sickening, isn't it? Yeah, now it's going to go to the House where I'm sure it'll pass.
I'm sure it will, but still, 200 times mad. What's wrong with this country?
Yeah, that's crazy, huh?
Wow. Okay, here's something that's good. And this is in the state of Hawaii. The legal smoking, this is for cigarettes, in Hawaii may soon be 100. If one
age of 100.
That's right. One Democratic lawmaker gets his way. His name is Richard Cregan. He's a physician, has proposed raising the legal smoking age by a full decade every year until only people over the age of 100 can buy cigarettes. If we don't ban cigarettes, Cregan says, we are killing people. That's good, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Jim, Joan Cooper was on the program prior to us.
Yes, she was.
Talking about the
show.
Schollenberger Shindig.
Yeah.
And I just want to give another shout out for that.
Thank you.
So on Monday, February 25th, from 5 o'clock till 8:30, there's going to be a fundraiser with wine, appetizers, and music. Dinner will be available to purchase. This is at the where is it? It's the Waterfront Cafe, I think.
Okay. Is it on there?
It's the old Apple Box.
Oh, yes, the old Apple Box.
Everybody knows where that is.
Right, by the turning basin.
Riverfront Cafe.
There we go.
Yeah. And there'll be a silent auction. They'll accept Visa and PayPal. For tickets, you can go to the SaveSchollenberger.com website. That's at SaveSchollenberger, SaveSchollenberger.com.
Good.
And tickets are $20 for adults. VIPs are $100. Kids are free.
That sounds nice.
At 5 o'clock, there will be a kids show with KPCA's own Benedettiville.
Hey. That's us.
At 6 o'clock, our own Gabby Law playing electric sitar and ukulele.
Excellent.
At 7 o'clock, it's the Hill Williams Band, Bluegrass. And then what you'll do is you'll get updates on the Saving Schollenberger Park.
Good.
And the fight against Dutra Asphalt Plant, which wants to go in across the river.
They still are around. Dutra's still around. They still want this.
But they still haven't been able to meet their conditional permit requirements.
Good.
But they are still trying, and they've got deep pockets, and they're persistent. So the money goes to a good cause.
Yes, I like that.
And
it is a good
I'd
cause.
be there, but I think I'm going to be out of town. If I'm not out of town, I'm going to be there.
Good. Sounds good.
And so there's...
I want to hear the sitar and the ukulele. I wonder if she plays them both at the same time.
Gabby Lala is a pretty good musician. And then one other announcement here. Please join PCA and KPCA programmer, staff, board, and community on Wednesday, March 6th for a dine and donate at Mary's Pizza on the west side on East Washington.
And you don't have to order pizza.
That's right. It's 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Simply show or bring a dine and donate flyer to the restaurant.
Perfect.
And PCA and KPCA will receive 15% back on your bill.
So KPCA is us, the radio. PCA is the television side.
That's right.
Yeah, good.
So, and that's on takeout
Hot
or
dog.
delivery. So that's March 6th, 11 to 9, Mary's Pizza on the west
Let's
side.
go now and just hang out until then.
That's it. Well, folks, that's it. Thanks for sticking with us.
Time
If
flies.
you did, we hope we didn't offend anybody. If we did, we apologize.
Well, wait a minute. He apologizes. I don't.
Yeah, all right. There you go.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Next
Thank you
week,
so
folks.
much, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
And
the music is still not coming on.
then...